Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bolt Report. I know it's been a little while since we've done a video, but we are back. This season is right around the corner. As of this recording, it's just a couple days away. And today, as always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is my good friend and co-host, Michael Wax. But Michael, we are joined by some very, very special guests. It's the gentleman from RBLR Sports, Eureka Reeler and Matt Gannon. Guys, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and joining us here.
It's an RBLR takeover.
You nailed my name. You got it right. Just the first time. I'm sure in editing you'll fix that perfectly.
Won't even sound like I butchered it at all. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we're basically doing a season preview for this video as we get ready. I know everybody's really excited, even though we had the shortest off season technically, as we made another Stanley Cup final. I don't know about you guys, but it's felt like forever that we've gotten to watch Lightning hockey, and I'm chomping at the bit, ready to go. But I thought it'd be a chance to look at the roster, kind of see what we got and what our expectations coming out for this season. So let's start off with that. Michael, give me some thoughts on this season's roster coming up. What are you excited about?
Well, I mean, the return of Vlad Domestikov. I mean, Vlad's the man. I got Vlad's jersey. That's my boy. I'm very excited for him to come back. I was pumped the first day when on free agency when they re-signed him. He's looked great in the preseason. You know, you said a couple times to me that, you know, preseason hockey is not the most fun to watch. You'd rather not be watching preseason hockey. You'd rather actually mean something. But, you know, he looked great. He led the team in scoring. I know that's not a huge indication of what's going to happen during the regular season, but if you're willing to play and you're ready, then you're going to show up at that time. And I think his effort during the preseason made it known to not only himself and the fans, but definitely the rest of the team that he's not taking anything for granted, this being his second time with the Lightning. And his quote after the Florida game was very indicative of where his mind is at, which it's not about him, it's about the team. And he thinks the team is ready. So I'm very excited for him to come back.
And to be fair, when I said that, the Lightning were 0-4 at the time in the preseason, and covering games when you're constantly losing is not fun. Luckily, though, Domestikov was fantastic in that final game. He got a hat trick and assist. That one was a lot of fun to cover. So that's the reasoning for that. But Eureka, I'll go to you next. Anybody you're looking forward to? Any overall thoughts on our roster coming up here as we get things kicked off?
Overall, this team is built for one thing, and that's bringing home hardware. And at the top of the roster is as good as it's been in the entire Tampa Bay run that we've had. So my focus is still on the bottom six. And so I'm looking for, there's some oddball lineups, right? Like one of the lines is Colton, Domestikov, Perry. You kind of have Corey Perry, then Corey Perry 2.0 bringing back Domestikov, and then you have the young gun that he could go up, he could go down. And then the bottom line of Maroon, Belmar, and I think Gabriel's on that line, where you've got the rookie, the vet, and then the bruiser with Maroon. So those are the guys that are going to be the fine line between ultimate success and wherever we're going to end up.
Yeah, that's an interesting line. Matt, what about you? What are you looking forward to for the season?
I'm excited for a whole season of Nick Paul. I mean, it's no secret that he became just such a quick fan favorite. Once the trade with Ottawa happened, it was unfortunate letting Matthew Joseph go. I know a lot of people had a soft spot for him, but I think everybody is primed and ready for, hopefully 82 games and more of Nick Paul. I mean, if he looked good in the preseason as well. Obviously he wasn't as flashy as he was, later in the season and in the playoffs, but he's not fighting for a spot or anything. He just signed a 7-year deal with us. He doesn't have to wow us in the preseason. But man, I'm so stoked to see, a whole season of Nick Paul hockey.
Yeah, that's very true. And Nick, you're right. Nick Paul was great in the preseason. He was actually probably one of the most consistent guys that we had in the preseason. He did play the most as well, but he was really good. I liked what I saw from him a lot. Eureka, you mentioned that you think it's going to be Gabriel Fortier on that bottom line. So we're not official on the opening night roster here. There's still a couple of players that could change here as we get closer, and the whole cap situation makes it really weird. With Myers just got sent down on waivers. Cole Koepke just got sent down on waivers as well. But it's all just kind of a cap related management. Michael, you looked at this more. Do you understand it better at all? I know you basically have to have a degree in this kind of stuff to figure it out, but can you explain it all for us?
Yeah, so from what I understand, again, we're not the experts at this, but from what I could piece together, the Lightning currently have a roster of 24. The max you can have at one given time is 23. So what the Lightning did today was they sent Cole Koepke down to the Syracuse Crunch on a paper transaction. He is not going anywhere. He's not able to get claimed. He's still waiver exempt. So he will be either in the lineup or in the press box on opening night. He'll be with the team. As far as Fleet Myers is concerned, they sent him down. They have to pass him through waivers to get the cap situation under the cap because apparently Brett Seabrook's LTIR number is not enough to offset both Meyer and Koepke. So they have to put Meyer in the minors for a couple of days to get that cap relief. And if Myers goes unclaimed, it's another paper transaction, and he's brought up to the Lightning. As far as Anthony Cirelli and Zach Bogosian goes, I know we'll get into what they mean more on ice a little bit later, but because both of them are getting shoulder surgery or had shoulder surgery and are recovering, won't be available until about mid-December. They'll be probably placed on LTIR. There's no confirmed placement for them yet, but they have to wait until day one of the NHL season to do that. Very complicated, I know.
It is extremely complicated. But again, so Eureka, you mentioned you think Fortier, but it could be Cole Koepke as well. Anybody else? What do you guys think on what rookie that could show up here in the starting on opening night? Neither of them jumped off the page for me during the preseason. I know Fortier didn't get a ton of time. I don't think in actual preseason games. It was more Cole Koepke that was playing in the preseason. But Matt, I'll start with you. Who do you like between these two slotting in that forward line, at least until Cirelli comes back?
You were right about neither of them really jumping out at you or anything like that. But, I did notice certain qualities with, each individuals. And the one that stood out just a little bit more to me was Koepke. He seems like he's just an energizer, buzzsaw style player. Again, with limited minutes and, a bit of a sheltered role. He's not going to be a difference maker or anything like that. But to me, I would give him the nod personally. I like a little bit more what I've seen from him so far. I know Fortier had maybe a handful of games with the Lightning last year, I think like 3 or 4 regular season games when we were dealing with all the COVID struggles there. But I don't know. I think Koepke could be a really useful tool, again, relatively, with, where he's going to be playing, who he's going to be with. I think he would be a decent addition. But again, you're never going to know. The regular season is just trial and error. The preseason is, where you kind of get a feel for guys, and the regular season is where you kind of iron things out, and the playoffs is grind time. So I think, neither of these guys, if they do crack the opening lineup, I don't think either one is really safe to stay. Of course not, because we're waiting on, guys to come back like Cirelli. But to me, I think, again, I would give the nod to Koepke.
All right, Eureka, you said Fortier. What do you have any reasoning behind it, or what do you got?
Yeah, I think especially if you're pairing him with a guy like Pat Maroon. I mean, what I like most about Fortier in the long run is he's got some good size. He's good at skating. He's a speedster. He's got experience with the PK. He's not scared of contact. I mean, we're talking a bottom 6 guy, but he's young, he's cheap, and he's got some long-term potential that if they're if he's able to pair with veterans at the bottom where they're not going against the elite of the elite, he can get some playing time, and I think he'd be all right. But what Matt said, I think is 100% true, that he'll just maybe get 20 to 30 games, maybe, like tops, but injuries might happen. And as we get guys back, Sorelli's November, I think, is when he's expected to show back up.
I think the latest update I saw on Sorelli was mid-December is what they said. I'm imagining it's going to be the same for Bogosian, but you never know.
So I think that bottom spot, again, I don't know the contracts of who's got as many options to go down and things, but Koepke, I think it's 1A, 1B between Koepke and Fortier.
They'll probably switch them around a lot and then see who, is the hot hand, and then roll with that person until Sorelli comes back. That's usually how it always is. You kind of change it back in and out, because again, just like we talk about how the regular season is completely different from the playoffs, the preseason is completely different for the regular seasons. So, those are all different situations that you get to work with there. But I do want to talk about the defense as well, because that's going to look a little different as well. So you've got Felipe Myers is the big name that I am still expecting to be back at the NHL level, assuming he's able to clear waivers and all of that jazz with the LTIR. I don't know exactly how that's going to work out, because the Lightning said they liked his play, so there wasn't an issue there. But I liked what I saw from Myers as well in the preseason, and I think he could be a huge addition to the defense, especially with Bogosian out, and then Foote still hasn't taken that major jump for me either. So I think Myers could be a saving grace for the Lightning.
Yeah, wherever you want to put Myers, I think, is going to be a big question. Whether you want to put him on that first pair with Victor Hedman, give Hedman that ability to roam around, similar that he had with Jan Ruda, and just have Myers just sit back there. And he's got a very heavy shot. So if you would just want to stable him to the blue line and just have him rifle pucks from the blue line, that could be fine. And he'll be defensively responsible. I mean, you could put him on the second line with Mikhail Sergachev, varying degrees of success in terms of being able to handle the puck correctly when it comes to Sergachev rather than Victor Hedman. Or, I think it would be really interesting to have a third pair of the new guys, of Hayden Fleury and Philippe Myers. Because even though both of them are right-handed, there is a situation where another Lightning defenseman probably won't be available for the team. And until Zach Bogosian gets back, you're going to need someone to fill out that left-handed spot. So I like the idea of having a third pair of two right-handed defensemen, which is a position that comes at a premium. And they really like the play of Myers because they've already signed him to an extension. And with Hayden Fleury, they signed him to a 2-year deal. So if you believe in these guys, you're going to play them. So, don't give them a ton of minutes. And if you want to, feel free to, cycle them with Cal Foote for the top pair. Or if Cernak has to go up one and Foote goes to the third line, bring them to the second pair. But feel free to be creative with what you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I get to you guys, Eureka and Matt, I want to mention this. So you kind of mentioned there, Michael, but so there were some allegations that came out against Ian Cole. If you guys haven't seen this on Twitter, you can go on there and check out all the statements and all that kind of stuff. But basically there are some allegations against Ian Cole about some things that he did that are not good whatsoever. Obviously we don't condone any of that kind of stuff. The NHL and the Lightning both know about it, and they have said they are doing their investigations to look into it. So I have no idea how this is going to play out, if the Lightning are going to have him on the roster at all, if he's going to get cut, if he's going to get put on, some kind of like administrative leave type of thing. I have no idea. And the important thing to remember is, we don't know anything. I hope that this stuff isn't true at all. But if it is true, it needs to be taken care of. And quite honestly, he shouldn't be on the ice. So we'll have to wait and see. It's a terrible and unfortunate situation, but the Lightning are going to have to make some adjustments if that's the case and Cole can't play. because as you mentioned, Michael, maybe going with Myers and Foote or Myers and Fleury. We'll have to wait and see. But Eureka, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the defensive side of things here?
Even with Ian Cole on the roster, he would have been best as like a kind of a savvy pickup on the bottom of the line. So when Bogosian returned, wherever that was going to shake up, who knows where he was going to. We're not talking about a guy who would have been right with Edmund in the first pairing. So take that for what it is. So, but I think this is with injuries and things like this, guys like Myers or maybe Radish or Sean Day might even get a little bit of time on that bottom line with Fury. I think Fury's for sure what everything that Mike said was like spot on. I love them being creative, and they're the team that will do this. And there's a little bit of a hierarchy that needs to be established, because Foote, again, this needs to be step up time for Cal Foote. I don't know how many more seasons we can say that. We've said this for 2 seasons, I think now. It was a rookie and then a second year, and now we're going into this one going, who are you? Are you this top line? And he'll have a little bit of time to prove it, but they could move around Chernak, they can move around Sergachev, and they've got a number of guys they can bring in to do that. But there might even be a trade to get, if Foote just falls flat and we still don't have Bogosian for an extended period of time, you could see, I think, a small move to shore up that bottom line.
Matt, what about you?
On the defense?
On the defensive side, what do you got?
There's one thing that really jumps out at me, and that our D-corps is huge in size. I mean, you got to really think about it. Like Victor Hedman's 6'6", you got big Eric Chernak, you got big Cal Foote. We've got a very, very, again, just no other way to put it, huge defense. I was impressed with Cal Foote this last couple of games that he played in the preseason, especially that pass he got over to Braden Point. I thought that was actually a really nifty, neat play from him. But I've also really enjoyed Phil Myers so far. I think he's been pretty decent at laying the body. He's not afraid to hit you, close you off whatsoever. And again, we all know that the Lightning, the coaching staff, they like his game so far as well too, especially even before seeing him play. They, locked him up to a 2-year extension that doesn't start until next year. Till next year. So I'm impressed. Of course, losing McDonough hurts, especially seeing that he's, a point per game already in Nashville. It's not going to last, but it just kind of stings you a little bit. I don't know.
You had to bring it up, Matt. You just had to bring it up.
I'm cheering for him. Again, I like Nashville. I like them as a team, and I, love Ryan McDonough. So it just stings a little bit. But we really do have a little bit of an embarrassment of riches in terms of defensemen, despite, I'd say, it being deeper. Like, we have more brand name guys, I'd say, this year than last year. Whereas, last year, if one of our left-handed guys went down, who fills it? We have no idea. We had, an extra right-handed defenseman. It was Cal Foote kind of playing that 7th defenseman spot. I'd say this year we've got, 2 guys. Let's say, if this Ian Cole situation can iron itself out, I'd say we've got 2 guys who are, NHL ready at pretty much every single time. It's just kind of going to depend on, what the circumstance is. Of course, you got to take injuries into account as well. But I'd say the defense is not the thing that worries me whatsoever. Of course, maybe the offense from it worries me a little bit, but you have, dying on this hill, the best defenseman in the NHL all around, and a great, up and comer who is still just a baby to me, Mikhail Sergachev, despite already having, 5 years under his belt with this team. I'm not at all. Yeah, it's nuts. People, you would think he's like, 27, 28, just considering how long he's been with the team. He started playing with the team the year after he was drafted. He was an 18-year-old with us, if I'm correct. So maybe 19, but again, he's only got,
doesn't make a difference. It's still crazy.
He's got nowhere to go but up. Again, you've got Victor Hedman, who does not look like he's regressing anytime soon. He's just Nick Lidstrom light. It's the last thing that worries me, other than, foot speed. There's a lot of new faces with Cole, Myers, and Fleury. Fleury, I think he does have a lot to prove. If Carolina couldn't make him into a bona fide NHL defenseman, Seattle, different story. They're a mess. But if Carolina couldn't, it worries me a little bit. But at the same time, the Lightning, they're a defenseman factory. So he's going to probably play the least out of them all, I would assume. But again, it's the last thing that worries me on this team.
It's going to be interesting on the defensive side. That's for sure. We're going to have to wait and see again. A lot of this is just wait and see. I know it's like one of the boring answers there, but I think Myers is going to be the guy that really steps up here and makes a difference. I really liked what I saw from him in preseason. Eureka, like you mentioned, Sean Day as well. He was one of my favorites in preseason, but he got sent down. So we'll see how things play out. Hopefully everything works out. But I think here's the ultimate question. We talked about offense. We've talked about defense, and those guys are pretty good and we have some pretty good answers there. But the biggest question mark, obviously, goaltending. What are we going to do for goaltending, guys? I mean, I don't know.
We're hopeless.
Let the moose loose. Let the moose loose.
Yeah, I like that.
Elliott, he's going to be the starter, right? No, obviously goaltending is rock solid in Andre Vasilevsky. He's been the one common piece throughout everything that has always kept us as a contender. Even though Michael always is saying that he wants Elliott in net and can't stand when Andre Vasilevsky's playing so many darn games.
I'd like to stand by this position. I'd like to stand by this position and say that I don't care how good your starting goalie is. He should never play more than 55 to 57 games in a season, because I'm tired of Andre Vasilevsky being tired in the playoffs when he's just going at 120% in the playoffs, and they can't. Everybody else is just kind of doing their thing, but Vasilevsky hasn't been replaced in a playoff game since the Eastern Conference Finals in 2018. Like, he's played in every single playoff game and has not been replaced since then. So he's tired. He played a lot of hockey. I don't care about the regular season, and I don't think he does either. So I'm cool with him playing like 50, 52 games. Like, give Elliott more games because he's older and he's more experienced and he's not a starter anymore, but he should be playing at a point where he's not playing like 10, 15 times a year.
And Elliott's capable, right? I mean, he was great last year, and I think he was decent in the preseason as well. But I really like Elliott. I don't know about you guys, Matt and Eureka.
Oh, he won me over completely. I mean, I don't think anybody had on their bingo card for, best, one of the biggest additions to the team would be Brian Elliott. I don't think anybody had that, especially after his recent couple of years. He wasn't on great teams. He wasn't on any kind of team like the Lightning. He was always relied on as the starter, but he won me over for sure. It took him a couple of games, but only as the season went on, he only got better. So I think, Michael, I agree with you. I think, Elliott, not that Vazzy should play less, but Elliott should play more, if you know what I mean. Because if Vasilevsky has proven anything to us, outside of him being the best goaltender in the league right now, is he's durable. I mean, you ask any goaltender, they'll never tell you they want to play less games. They want to be in every single game. They want to be a factor in every match. But, unfortunately, that's not the case. But what he's proven to us is that he doesn't, knocking on wood, he doesn't have any kind of injury problems. He hasn't for a couple of years. And it can change any second. But that's just one thing I can hang my hat on. But again, I do think Brian Elliott deserves more games. He's earned it.
It's the reason they brought him in. I mean, we talked a couple years ago about our backup goaltending and such the drop off that we would have. We didn't have to really worry about that with Elliott, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, and thankfully, I saw people rank us as the number one goaltending duo in Andre Vasilevsky and Brian Elliott, which is kind of crazy to say because, as you mentioned, Matt, many people don't think of Elliott as that great of a guy, but he was fantastic for us last year. All right, the next segment I want to do here, we've talked about kind of what we are thinking about for the roster, but let's go with, do you guys have any hot takes? Michael was chomping at the bit for this one, so I'll start with him. Michael, what's your hot take for this upcoming season?
Yeah, so I know Eureka brought up the possible third line of I think it was Colton, Nemestikov, and Perry.
Perry, yep.
So I actually think that Colton is going to get a lot of first line time this year, because that spot has been, voided with the loss of Andre Palat. You don't know if Brendan Hagel is going to be the one to take over that role. I hope they don't do the big three, because I like the fact that they've spread them out. Even if I'm not the biggest fan of the second line of Stamkos, Cirelli, and Killorn. But again, with the early season flexibility, you have that opportunity to do that. I think that Ross Colton is going to score 30 goals this year. He had 20 last year. He did not score within the first, I believe it was 13 games of the year, and still put up 20 goals with third line time and minimal second power play unit time. So if you're going to give him more responsibilities, whether that is on the first or second line, whether that is more time on the second power play unit, because I believe the last update we had was that Pat Maroon was taken off that second power play. You are going to see Ross Colton score more. And he had a couple of those droughts, the one at the beginning of the season, and I believe he had one other one that was like 10 games long, and he still put up 20 goals, which is crazy to me. Corey Perry might get 20 as well, because he was on the fourth line and he almost had 20 last year. I think this is going to be one of the highest scoring teams in Lightning history because of all the depth that they have. And while I don't think that Colton is going to be at the very top, because you've got people like Stamkos and Point and Kucherov, I do think that Colton is going to be one of those guys that scores 30 this year.
Yeah, it's not a crazy thing to say. A lot of the times the Lightning players are never up there for those, Rocket Richard or most points, because it's so spread out and we have so many guys that can score goals. So you often don't see our guys up there for a lot of that kind of stuff. But I like Ross Colton a lot. Eureka, what about you? Who's your hot take or maybe breakout player for this upcoming season?
My hot take is it really is Sergachev's time to shine. He got the extension because we thought he was ready. I say we, but the team. But now it really is time to excel. He's the offensive weapon as a defender, so we need to see his scoring jump a bit. In short bursts, he was exceptional, but as he got more playing time, the scoring per game had dropped. But I think that now it is time. He's going to be the leading star of that second pairing, and it's time for him to step up for that. And I'm positive and hopeful that he will do it. It's just we've invested a lot of money very early on for someone to not be average.
Took a little bit of a risk. Yeah, that's for sure. And I hope you're right. I hope he pans out. He's been working out in the offseason. Sure. He says he's ready to go. So sure. We will see how that plays out. Matt, what about you?
Mine, it's not so much of a hot take, but it's more of it's a take for sure. And it's not out of left field or anything like that. But I think we're going to see a 95% completion season from Nikita Kucherov. I think a lot of people have started disrespecting him. I've been saying he's injury prone. He's made of glass, kind of the same moniker that Stamkos has had for, the better part of 5 years now, if not more. And I think that name has been, carried over to Kucherov. And I think that if he plays 74 games or more, he will be the Art Ross winner this year. I think he's got a lot, he's already proved everybody everything. He's been the highest scoring player, active player in the league with 128 points back in 19. He was the second in points per game last year, just behind this guy named McDavid. And I don't know if you've ever heard of him. But I swear, I think if he plays any more than 74 games this year, which that's also part of my take, is I think he will be mostly healthy throughout the entire way, is that he will be, far and above the point leader on our team, but also in the league. I think he is just a clear-cut candidate for it.
How about the Lightning win the Triple Crown? Vass wins the Vezina, Hedman wins the Norris, and Kucherov wins the Art Ross. Everybody getting in on the awards, the triple, and then a Stanley Cup to cap it all off. How about that for
That's wishful thinking.
It's very wishful thinking, but
the greatest season of all time.
That would be something, that's for sure. I was debating between two, honestly. Michael's been tooting Nemestikov's horn for a little while now, ever since we got him. And he did look really good in the preseason. And
he's also scoring 25, by the way.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, part of me kind of feels like he might be able to put up a pretty good amount of goals with the way that connection he had with the rest of the team. But I'm for my hot take, and kind of breakout season, kind of mixing them both here, is Brandon Hagel. I think Brandon Hagel is going to have a great year this year. I think he's scoring at least 30, 35. I hope he breaks 40.
Damn.
Yeah, no, if we wanted a hot take, I'm going a hot take. Come on, boy. No, I really like Brandon Hagel, though. Yeah, I hopefully it'd be great. But Hagel, the other thing for him too is like he was really good with Chicago. He also had a lot more playing time in Chicago than he did here. And I believe it was Eric Rowenson who did an article on this as well, saying that, listen, it was a major adjustment for Hagel coming over here to the Lightning, right? You know, he didn't know anybody. It's his first time being traded. He's still a really young kid. So it took him some time to try and get used to the way that the way the Lightnings do things down here. And that can be a big adjustment. Some players do it quicker and some take some more time, but I'm really thinking Brandon Hagel gets into a good flow and starts to play really well. I'm praying that he is on at least the second power play this season, because I think that'll give him a huge boost. All of you guys know that I've been yelling at the TV for Brandon Hagel to be on the power play, but man, I'm hopeful for him. I think he's got a great season, but only time will tell here. So we'll have to wait and see.
I hope go ahead, Matt.
Okay, Jake, I want to ask you, where would you like to see Hagel playing this year? Like, what line? Who do you want to see him with? You know, for him to be, you know, as successful as he was in Chicago and those couple of years there, he's obviously going to have to play top 6 minutes. Is that somewhere you'd want to see him slot in? Who would you want to see him with, and who do you think he could kind of gel with? Because he was kind of stuck in between, second and third line last year, and just never really seemed to solidify himself in any real role. Always kind of a roamer kind of guy, and just never got his feet planted. He was still useful and helped in very crucial situations, especially looking back to the Game 6 OT winner. But where would you like to see him end up?
Man, it's tough because you're right. He did roam around a lot. He had a little bit of time on the. I don't remember if he ever played on the first line at all, but maybe playing with a guy like Kucherov. I can't remember if he played too much with him at all, but Kucherov is a playmaker at heart. He's one of the best playmakers in the NHL. Maybe playing with a guy like that could be super helpful for him. And maybe I'd like to see him get a little bit of first line time. Michael said, we don't want to see the big three maybe, or he doesn't want to. So if they're not going to have the big three out there, throw Hagel on that first line with either like a Stamkos or a Kucherov. At least try it. That's all I'm saying. At least give it a shot, see how he does. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But again, I think the big thing for me, no matter where he ends up, is that I just think he's going to be more comfortable with the Lightning. And because it is a big transition, especially as a young kid coming over to a completely new city, completely new team. So I think that extra time, having a full off season now is going to help him immensely. But we'll wait and see. But first line time is where he would probably shine the most, but he may not get that as well. A lot of that is dependent on how you're playing. Cooper's known to mix up the lines all the time too. So, he could start out on the first line. If he's not doing well, he could end up on the fourth line. Who knows? Because the Lightning don't really have set lines anymore.
And going back to your hot take about him scoring like 30 plus goals this year, as great as that would be careful what you wish for, because he is in a contract here. He will be an RFA at the end of it, but contract years are a huge make or break motivator for some guys.
Well, he's got one more year after this as well, correct?
Oh,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe he's got 2 years left.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Let
me go look now.
I'm pretty sure he's got 2 left, because I think he had the 1, and then they signed him to a 2-year extension, and then he's an RFA. Right. But hey, skyrocket that trade value just in case we can't afford him if he outprices us, right?
Yeah. So Brandon Hagel's he signed a 3-year deal at the beginning of last season, and he's got 2 more years, this one and next one.
Okay, so yeah, 2 years left. So not quite a contract year, but getting close there.
30 plus goals, lock it in.
I mean,
I'm telling you.
I really want to see him on the power play because he is the one that draws all the power plays.
Yes.
So, like,
That's true.
when people say, "Oh, he didn't score enough," yeah, he was drawing all the penalties. Like, he was doing things that you guys weren't paying attention and didn't see.
Stuff that doesn't
He
show
was
up on the score sheet.
he was defensively responsible. He was on the penalty kill, which he's going to have a bigger role in this year. He was drawing the penalties. Like, just because he wasn't scoring, yeah, you gave up a lot for him, but still, like, he was doing what he was supposed to.
Well, we'll wait and see how it all plays out here. We'll see if Cooper was listening into this video and if he's going to put Hagel on the power play for us on that first line. I doubt it, but it would be nice, right? One last thing I want to do before we wrap things up here, and guys, I appreciate the heck out of you coming on. It's been an excellent episode so far. So let's end it off with something fun, and off with a bang. Season predictions for this year. So give me your, you don't have to give me an exact record or how many points they're going to get, but give me a general idea where you think the Lightning are going to finish this year. And then maybe what a success would be to you. I know the Lightning got to make the playoffs, but would you be happy if they make it to the conference finals and then fall there, or do they have to get to the Stanley Cup finals and they have to win it? I want to get your guys' take on that. So Michael, I'll start with you.
I don't think the regular season is going to be a big deal for them. Hasn't been the last 2 years, or 3 seasons actually, and they won the Stanley Cup in 2 of them and made the finals in the last one. That being said, I don't think the Atlantic is as competitive as it was last year. Because I think Toronto took a step back, Florida took a step back. Like, Boston's not the same team. So I would put the Lightning at like second in the Atlantic, and it doesn't matter what place in the Eastern Conference. And I would expect them to make another run to the Stanley Cup Finals. This is the team, this is the time. And predictions don't always happen to their fullest extent, but this is the roster that the Lightning and the core that the Lightning are going to need to push for the next couple of years. This is the perfect time for them. So, 4th consecutive Stanley Cup Finals berth, but not that great of a regular season.
All right, I like it. Eureka, what do you got for me?
Absolutely. The feeling I'm getting is that outsiders think that there's a crack in the foundation. Everyone's waiting for, they can't do this forever. And unfortunately for everyone else, we're built like that. Yeah, we lost Palat. Yeah, we lost Ryan McDonough. But 2 years ago, we lost Gord and Goodrow and the whole line. We lost a whole line, and we did all right. Of course, I'm hoping that the middle tier guys elevate themselves to elite status. And I would love to see Hagel, Colton, Foote, Chernak, these guys be more valuable than their cap hit. Basically, be good value for their bottom to mid-tier lines. To be honest with you, yeah, playoffs again are a lock. Michael had it perfectly fine. Where I do believe we're going to be 4th in the Eastern Conference. We may be 2nd or 3rd in the Atlantic, but I still think that the division is in play. Again, I think it's the flip side for Toronto. I think they'll do really well in the regular season because they have so much pressure, and that's why they will choke in the playoffs. But we're still at the top of the East, and until we're dethroned, if we don't make it deep in the playoffs, if we don't make it to at least the conference finals, I will think that was a step back for the Lightning. A cup is uncertain any year. To get to the cup is very, very, very arduous, but we should be one of the final 4 in the East.
Matt, what you got?
I was expecting a bit of a step back for this team. We did lose some crucial players, but Michael kind of sold me on it a little bit. Him saying he thinks that this might be, one of the highest scoring teams in the league and highest scoring team in Lightning history. I think it's going to be tough to top that 18-19 season, but that we don't talk about that. Even though I bring it up as soon as I can. he kind of sold me, because from what I've seen from Nemesnikov this preseason, if he can translate that, find some chemistry with whoever he might be playing with, that's kind of an enigmatic situation in and of itself. But I think we're going to see a lot of offense, and again with this decor, I think we're going to see a lot of more defense. I think we're going to have more defined roles for each of our forwards and defensemen, and I can see us really charging for that first spot in the division. But where I see us slotting in at the end of the day, it will still be a great regular season for us. We'll be second in the Atlantic, just behind Toronto. I think they got better this year, and again, like Eureka said, they've got a lot to prove. They've got all eyes on them. Even though nobody really cares about what they do up until playoffs, they still care. They've got the highest expectations out of, I'd say, anybody in the league. I see them probably taking that first spot. I don't think Florida is even making the playoffs this year, and if they do, they'll be the 4th seed. I can see I'm kind of on the Ottawa hype train there as well. I don't see Boston making it, but again, as far as I know, we'll be slotted second in the division. I think the Atlantic's got a lot more players this year. It's not nearly as top heavy as it was last year and the few years before. I mean, Buffalo's better now. I mean, there's no team in the Atlantic that got a non-playoff team last year that got worse. They all got better. Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa, and Montreal even. They're not going to be players. But again, I think this division has been shaken up a bit, but I think the Lightning spot is safe as an automatic playoff lock. It just depends where, and I'm saying second.
So yeah, Jake, before you get into that, Eureka, you brought up something earlier. You said that they can't keep doing it forever, and that got me thinking of who I think's the boogeyman in the East. It's the Pittsburgh Penguins. They can't keep doing this forever, and yet they do it every single year. So the Lightning are sort of getting into that territory now, where you can take away all the side pieces, and as long as the core is there, it doesn't matter. So Jake, go ahead with your standings prediction.
You make a great point, right? It's even though the Penguins haven't made it super far, they've always been a playoff lock because that core is still hanging around, still kicking strong. Real quick before I get into my season prediction, I just realized, guys, the Russian 4 is back. It's no longer the Russian trio. It's Nemestikov, it's Kucherov, it's Vasilevsky, and it's Sergachev. So the Russian 4 is back in action for the Lightning this year. So that will be fun to watch as well. But obviously the Lightning, I think, are going to make the playoffs. You guys have been kind of doing some realism predictions here, but I'm going to go with the homer in me, and we're finishing first in the division, guys. It's happening. Hagel's 35 goals and first in the division. We're dominating this year. No, I do think
as we don't win the President's Trophy, we can finish first in the division and conference. Somebody else needs to win the President's Trophy.
Right. A part of me almost wants to win it just so we can be that team that finally breaks that curse that's so on there.
But the curse.
I'm good.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are right there with you guys, and it's not worth it. I don't know. It's tough to say, as we kind of talked about here, you never know what's going to happen. It's the NHL at the professional level in any sport. Anything can happen any week, any day. So I think the Lightning will be a playoff team. I could easily see them just squeaking in a wild card spot. And I could also see them finishing at the top of the division. And the Lightning have learned how to kind of take their foot off the gas pedal a little bit as they get to the playoffs. Like, they make sure they're in the playoffs, but then they kind of relax their way into it and then full gas pedal once the playoffs start. So I would imagine the Lightning are going to be at the top for a majority of the regular season, and then they drop down a little bit towards the end. And that might panic some fans, but I don't think you need to, because we've seen them do it year in and year out. Eureka, I thought you nailed it when you said, listen, winning a Stanley Cup, even getting to a Stanley Cup final, is so hard to do. And that's such a tough thing to say, well, they didn't make it to the finals, they didn't win the cup, so it's a failure of a season. But yeah, conference finals, like, make it to the conference finals, or at least deep into the second round, like a 7-game series, maybe I would still be okay with, because we've had such a successful last couple of years. But we've got to get Corey Perry off of that losing streak. So we need to get him back into the finals and get win. We need to get Maroon back on track and winning his Stanley Cup so he can have that Hall of Fame resume. I'm excited, guys. The hockey is back. We are ready to go. I can't wait to see how all these predictions look so bad when we come back and look at these later. But
no, Jake, guys, yours will be right.
Right. Yeah, mine will be right.
We'll all be wrong. Yours will be right.
Oh boy. I got anything else that we want to mention before we wrap up here? Got it. All right, cool. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us back on this side. Eureka, I'll let you go and hit us. Or where can the people come check out you and Matt and the rest of the RBLR crew if they want to do so?
If you did not get enough Matthew Gannon in one sitting every single week, Jake and Matt, you guys go through a phenomenal, every week you guys have a great discussion. We are RBLR Sports on all major forms of podcast platforms. We are on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, you name it, we're there. We're also on all forms of social media at RBLR Sports, RBLR Sports. Giving you content every single day and week. Rowdies, Rays, Lightning, Bucks, everybody, you name it, we do it.
It's the best place for Tampa Bay sports coverage.
Yeah, man, come on. It's fun. We have a great team. Guys like Matt, our Rowdies guys, our Rays guys. Even when the lowest of lows happens, we always find a really good discussion to talk about.
Absolutely. Highly recommend going to check them out if you do get the chance. And of course, all of their stuff will be linked down in the description, so you can go check that out as well. Don't forget to follow us as well at the Bolt Report _TB for all of your live news, notes, game coverage, all of that great stuff. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on future videos just like this one. Again, thank you guys so much for listening and joining with us. And we will see you as the Lightning gets set for the regular season. Go Bolts.